Welcome everybody to new episode of the Holistic Actress Show. Today I am happy to have with me a friend and an influential person in my healing and transformational journey. He is a political scientist, a journalist, and a co-founder of Casa-earth. I'm happy to have today with me Santiago Rodriguez Tarditi. Welcome.
Hi, Marike. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here to be part of this incredible new project, this platform for expression, for community building, and for a little bit of magic. Congratulations on this amazing podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I do believe in the power of the words. And I think that me and you, we have a lot of things in common. We both love to write. And that means that we really give a lot of importance to the words, which is something that nowadays it's not that automatic. It's not that I don't give that for granted. People use words constantly, sometimes with not that much of meaning or attention on our carrying, And so, I was really curious I really wanted you today. You know why? Because I think there is a lot about your story and your journey that is clearly private, and it's going to be probably private. I don't think you're going to talk about your privacy today, but it's really interesting to me to see what's behind a path like yours, like a man who has been living a very fulfilled life and very adventurous life, who made bold choices since you were very, very young. Let's start with your veganism choice. I know that you decided to become vegan very, very young. Like in a teen age, and that already created a lot of change and transformation in your life. So yes, in this podcast, we talk about change and transformation. So I need people around the globe who can give inspiration and who can give permission sometimes, because I think that sometimes what we need is to feel that we can make decisions by observing somebody else. First questions that I have prepared for you, as there's something to unfold in this podcast. I'm going to try to be as short as I can. You write on Substack.
Right.
And yes, and your name on Substack is Normal Animal. That was really curious to me. So my first question is, what animal you are?
What animal am I? I'm a human animal. I think we often forget that we are also animals. And it's a very important word because it doesn't just compile different species around the world, but etymologically, it comes from the word anima. Anima meaning soul. So we are bearers of a soul. Being animals means having a consciousness, a collective consciousness that keeps us completely intertwined with all the different species. So as an animal, I'm a primate. I think we evolved from primates that originated in Africa and then decided to travel the world and conquer new lands, new climates, new topography, new culture, new religion. And somehow here I am, becoming the best version of that primate possible. And I think that is achieved with or through a spiritual evolution. I think that we went from whatever Neanderthal man, Australopithecus man, whatever, to becoming this Homo sapiens, this thinking man. But now we're evolving towards a Homo sentient, a being that's more connected with emotions, with the source being love, being light, um, and a balance of the dark side too, being our shadow or obscurity. So I am a very complex animal. I am an evolved primate that is continuing its path, um, and hopefully one day will achieve a spiritual essence.
Why one day and not now?
It's a process. It could be now, it could be an hour from now, it could be never, it could be in a different life. It's a process. You just have to endure it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about evolution. This isn't this is something that for many species
I'm just asking because I see you as a spiritual, I mean, I see you in your spiritual essence as a human being for as much as it is possible. And I love that you said I'm a complex human being. And so your name on Substack is Normal Animal. So I guess you do think that normality means also complexity, right?
Yeah, I think the decision behind the Substack name, by the way, for those who don't know, Substack is a platform that is becoming very popular amongst writers and journalists who are finding new ways to monetize their content, to share their stories, to create a community. So these are our newsletters. I try to send one newsletter every week. And then there's a part exclusive for paid content for subscribers who are willing to support the work of writers, because nowadays getting paid for publishing has become very different, very difficult, very complicated. Um, with the rise of AI, it's it's a whole nother ball game, and yeah, people just don't want to pay for work. So Substack is allowing us to share these stories. Normal Animal is the mix of this idea of being part of an ecosystem, part of a species, and then the normality is more of a wordplay and kind of an exaggeration, a hyperbole of the word, because normality doesn't really exist. It's just this very very made up framework that is interpreted accordingly to whatever is needed in a particular time. Behave normal, be normal, act normal. That's very different if your mother says it to you rather than your friend or a teacher or a doctor, or a different religion has a whole nother concept of what normality means. So I don't think normality really exists. What is being normal? What is being an animal? But at the same time, it's something that goes around my head since I was very little. This idea of having tick boxes and to follow certain norms that make you normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Define normality. Who can really define normality?
I mean, we're all normal, but we're all abnormal, but we're all real, but we're all surreal. You know, that's,
Yes.
as I said a while ago, we're just very complex beings.
Yes. So thank you for mentioning about Substack, and of course, all of your link and information on your account will be written on the podcast commentary, so people can find you. But I know you have already a lot of followers, so I'm happy for you.
Yeah, that's
um, so the thing that really fascinated me about you is your love story. I don't mean by that, like, not in the romantic way, like, not in the romantic way, but I was curious to observe and imagine what does it mean for a man who lived a freedom life, you know. I mean, I don't know your life, but what I have perceived, it's been this journalist, writer, you know, seeker, discover person that you are definitely not normal, if we can say, you know, not standard. You know, you don't strike me as somebody who goes to the office at 5 at 9 and comes back home at 5, right? So, and because I love change, I love transformation, I love understanding the power of change and transformation, I do truly believe that love is the most scary and transformative experience in life. And so very few people really jump into this challenge. Many people can feel like, oh, I change, I do things, I move. And I used to be one of them, like feeling really, really confident in my capacity of creating change just because I was so good at, you know, jumping on a plane and moving from Miami to New York to LA to London to, you know, whatever. I'm so cool. I make change in my life all of the time. But the reality of things is that change occurs so many times in the silence and in the darkness and in the stillness. And and love, yes, there are so many good things about it, but there are also difficult times on falling in love and then committing to love and using love as a way, as a, you know, as an engine that moves you to your next level, to your next version of you, right? And I do truly believe that love requires a huge strength and a capacity to die when you are single for a long time. And I've been single for a long time now. So I kind of observe people who took the jump and their journey, because I think it's inspirational and I think that is needed, especially to understand, and not only, you know, the romantic things of falling in love, but like really from a personal point of view. You know, this is my change. Yes, I'm with this person, but I'm changing and I'm committing to myself too, you know. I'm gonna let that person be, that version of me, the single one, die, and I'm going to welcome a new one. So would you share a little bit of your own transformation in this sense? How love has been transformational, and what have been, yeah, your path and your challenges and your enlightenment in this sense?
So I think it's important to define love. No, again, there are many different definitions of what love is, from the biological, just a number of chemicals interacting in your body to make you feel drugged, actually, to make you feel in ecstasy. There's also, our family friendly love, and then there is the couples love, which I think is based on a commitment to exercise compassion and empathy with another person or other persons, who will serve as mirrors that will show you a lot of insecurities, a lot of darkness, a lot of things that must be worked. And it takes a lot of commitment to get to both be willing to look at yourself in the mirror, and from the other side to hold the mirror for that other person to explore their most obscure corners. That is a love that is achieved through daily work. Yes, that beautiful fairy tale love exists, but it transforms over time. It changes. Especially in my case, I work with my wife, and so we're building pillars constantly. The pillars of trust, not just in terms of, hey, I'm gonna go out and party all night. Like, can I trust you? But also like, hey, we're running a company together. Can I trust you? Can we be trusted? So there are many different pillars that start appearing once you decide to settle down and to build something with another person. My journey, was always very. I was very open to meeting people, to trying out new things, to traveling the world with other persons. And at one point in my life, I thought that getting married was going to make me happy. I was married a few years ago. My first marriage didn't last too long. It was maybe under a year, but it was a long 8-year relationship that was also very chaotic because we did a lot of long distance. So I kind of explored everything from early commitment to total liberation to full sexuality to complete hermetism and concentration on myself. And what I realized was that although it can be very fun to always be open to discovery and to meeting new people, there's a big energy exchange, there's a big emotional exchange, there's a lot of intimacy that is shared, and that eventually becomes a little hard to maintain, instead of just like getting on a plane and being one day in one place. The same goes with a person. I'm dating 3 people at the same time, or having 2-month-long relationships, or like, it's fun, it's
It's
rewarding.
exhausting. It's exhausting after a while.
Long term, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's especially if you want to acknowledge that with the passing of time, especially if you're in this process of evolution, there's only so much you can grow by having these short-term flings or dating or relationship or whatever. there is a time and a place for that. You know, for some people is when they're younger, for some people is when they're older, for some people is when they're divorced, for some people is when they're married.
Mm-hmm.
This applies to every person differently, but in my case, it also happened without expecting it. You know, as I was coming out of some failed relationships, short-term relationships, and just being, you know, kind of bored with the dating scene, I decided not to continue dating. And then my wife, Valeria, appeared out of the
Yeah.
blue.
Well, let's mention Valeria. And also, I want to give a little bit of backstory of how I met Santiago and Valeria. Met them in their first retreat in Mexico, Tepoztlán, on March 2023. And yeah, and I want to also say that it's been quite surprising to, you know, seeing this humanity and in both of you. I care to say that because sometimes you meet people online, you join, programs, courses, retreats. You never know what you're gonna find. And I got lucky enough to find you both, and it's been a incredibly, human experience, but also how good people you are. That's another thing that really needs to be mentioned: how good people you are, and how much of humility also in the way you serve others. You give to others, you serve others, like without having to put on masks or just pretending or selling something different from who you are. So really appreciating all of that from both of you. So yeah, it's quite interesting because you use the word trust. I think this is a very difficult word. This is a difficult word for the world right now. There is a lot of unsafety in the world. There is a lot of unsafety in relationships. I talk for myself because you know a little bit of my story. And we all have lost people recently for some reason, for another reason. And this already creates a lot of unsafety. Having bold relationships you can count on, either is romantic relationship or friendships or communities, safety, it's important to build up trust, right? And I think that that's what you and Valeria are doing through your work, because your work is very much about safety and about trust. And it's also about reconnecting to the self, reconnecting to the nature. How much your passions have put you two together?
A lot. I mean, they were the main connecting points that drew us together, I think. I have been vegan for many years. I started exploring vegetarianism when I was a teenager, but I've been a vegan for the past 7 years or so, and I knew that finding a partner who was also vegan was non-negotiable. For me, it's a commitment, a lifestyle, a path of virtue, call it whatever you want. And it's not just a passing trend or a fad diet. So for me, it was very important to be able to share that space and those projects or objectives with someone who was like-minded. Equally, we both practice yoga, meditation. We're into herbalism, gardening, environmentalism as a whole, and that brought us together. But then we also discovered new passions independently and as a couple and as a business. So this whole concept of slow living is something that we had been practicing in a way without really labeling it. But now that we made it more of our purpose in our daily lives, but also through Casa-earth, our project together, I think it's become this guiding principle, this reminder of, hey, are we doing things the wrong way? Should we, like, take a break? Should we go exercise, walk in the park, meditate, play with the dogs, whatever? And so it's become this kind of this pole star that reminds us where we want to go. But yeah, the whole process is, I think what's important to emphasize here is that processes usually don't end. They don't finish. Like, there is no real goal in life. There is no finish line in life. I mean, you might consider death like the conclusion of a cycle, but then immediately I think there is this sort of rebirth or ascension or expansion or integration or whatever you want to call it. So it's something that is never ending. We are processes. We are processes, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with this idea of having a rigid finish line. Of course, it's good to have objectives. Of course, it's important to have
Intentions, right?
intentions, a list of things you want to accomplish. But like, just being here is the ultimate goal. Just experiencing life.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking about change and transformation, I do always this question to my guests, and I like this question because I'm an actress also, so I love to read scripts and scenes and stories, and you too. You do like to write and read as well. So I know that there is a time in the plot of a story where the main character, in acting is called the point of crisis. So the point of crisis is like something happens in the life of the character. And so the character is not going to turn back. It's not going to come back anymore in the past version. Something is going to happen. I love that my acting coach used The Godfather as an example. I don't know if you watched The Godfather, but there is this scene of Al Pacino going to the restaurant. He was the good guy. He didn't want to become like his father. He was working like as a military, good boyfriend and never cheating on the girlfriend. But then when they tried to kill the Godfather, his father, he realized, now I gotta change. Something needs to change.
Okay.
Then he went to the restaurant in Queens and and he killed for the very first time, knowing before going there that would have been a no turning back point for him. And I think that everybody has a no turning back point in every single life, in every life so far. Maybe it's gonna happen again, a new no turning back point. And I'm curious to know, what it's been yours no turning back point. Something that, like a person you met, significant, or an event that from that moment on, character Santiago couldn't be back, couldn't turn back.
It's actually a good question, and one I don't have a specific answer to. I think there have been many different no turning back points in my life, where you just decide to be committed to something. Like, for example, with writing, I knew, like, hey, I'm always gonna write. It's just, but that was something that kind of just naturally evolved, that naturally appeared in my life. I grew up in a family that is very intellectual, and my father is also a journalist and a writer, and so this kind of just this idea of writing was very normal to me, was part of our DNA, literally and metaphorically. But I guess it was when I published my first article, in a real magazine that I could go and buy at the bookstore or at the supermarket, and like open and see my name
When that
printed.
happened?
I was probably 17 or 18 years old. Um, and I got hired by what used to be the coolest magazine in Colombia back then, where like professional writers were published, and I published this 4-page article with pictures with my name on it, and it was this great moment of realizing like there's no turning back. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to write. I want to share stories. I want to share my perspective. I want to share some words, and hopefully find other people who connect. And then later on, that became a career and became a profession, and it's changed in many ways. I've done it as a political scientist. I've done it as a researcher. I've done it as a journalist. I've done it as a content creator for social media, as a script writer, as a copywriter for companies and brands. So writing, was natural, but when I realized that I could make a living of that, it was like a point of no return. Like, I'm not gonna change my career. I'm not gonna improvise on anything new. Like, it's not like I'm gonna go and pick up a violin and see if that's something that I could do. It's good to explore other things, but that commitment, and I think that's a key word. The commitment is what usually goes connected to the point of no turning back, point of no return. And it also happened later on with veganism. I understood veganism from an environmental perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from a nutritional perspective, from an ethical perspective. And then when I gathered all those different perspectives, I realized, there's really no turning back. Like, there's no need for me to go back and eating meat, and this is another commitment I'm willing to take. Likewise with a relationship, like, okay, I'm gonna get married with this person. Like, there's no turning back. There has to be commitment here. Like, this isn't just like, one more in my journey. It's not like I can pick up my bags and escape. And of course, we fight, and of course we have problems, and of course we had challenges, but when you commit, and then you create those points of no return, and say, hey, it's all in.
Beautiful. I love what you say. Like, I love what you say, because it resonates so much. I think change and not turning back, and really, taking changing means commitment. Like, changing means commitment and discipline on doing that. And it's not necessarily, as many people think, like, as I used to think, I'm going to jump in this plane, I'm going to jump in that plane, I'm going to do these things, like, I'm changing. That sounds more like running away. But commitment, and waking up every morning and knowing that 5 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to write every day, as much as for all of the rest of the habits that we have with relationships, with the music instruments. I think all the time about pianists, and guitarists every day. That's the only way to get a master of something, right? And so repetition is always the key. Beautiful. I love that. I'm going to ask a couple of questions more, and then I'll let you go, I promise. The first one that makes me curious about your nationality, because you are Colombian, and there is also a Italian blood in your blood, which I like because I'm Italian. So I understand. I mean, I don't know if I like it, but I understand at least. And how do you feel? Do you feel like do you feel Colombian? Do you feel European? Do you feel international? Where do you belong the most in terms of?
At, I feel confused. I think I've had the fortune of traveling to so many places, and I've lived in 9 different countries, 13 different cities. I was born in Colombia, but when we were 4 years old, or sorry, when I was 4 years old, we moved to Europe, and then I came back to Colombia when I was 8 or 9 years old. Then I lived and studied there. Um, but 18 years ago, I left. I moved back to Europe. I love Europe. I think it's a great place in many ways. Of course, it has a lot of problems too, like every part of the world. But that European connection is always there. And whenever I'm in Europe, I feel very comfortable. I lived in Paris, I lived in London, I lived in Berlin for a while too. So these are places that I understand and where I feel very, very comfortable. Colombia is my birthplace and will forever be important for me. My father is Colombian. My mother is Italian Brazilian, was Italian Brazilian. She passed away a year and a half ago. But she lives on through me, of course, and through many other things. So it's important to note that I grew up in a very liberal family, according to Colombian standards. My mom was a vegetarian for a while, and that's how I first realized that it was a possibility when I was only 13 or 14 years old. My father, being a journalist and a writer, always exposed us to books, to documentaries, to museums. So that, in a way, created this very international mindset that was occasionally hard for me to explore in Colombia, just because one example in particular, but this one time in school, a few guys wanted to beat me up for whatever reason. I can't remember, because it was an all boys school, and it was about being very tough and being bully and getting into fights and so on. And they wanted to punch me, to hit me, and I rejected any violence. And so these guys became more frustrated, and then they offended my mother, which of course was the ultimate offense. And everyone around us was like, "Oh my God, like,
Yeah, you
what are
gotta
you guys
punch them
doing?
back.
Like, now you have to fight, like it's your mother." And I replied with a poem, and I said, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words shall never hurt me." And that made it worse. I, I, I got punched harder. Um, no, actually, it prevented the fight. I didn't fight, but people were like, "Who is this guy? Like,
Yeah, of
is
course.
he's gay? He's a loser. He's a weird.
Yeah.
Like,
He's
who?"
provoking me, like, of course, like teenagers wouldn't get it the right way. But I
Totally, totally. So that's kind of the Colombia I grew up in. Uh,
hmm
I changed a lot of friends. I had to fight with breaking down a lot of standards. I had to, also carve my own spot. And I never felt entirely at home in Colombia, although it's a place I deeply love, and I still feel very, very much part of myself whenever, Colombia is going through political or social turmoil. Like, it affects me. I feel it very close. And at one point, I also considered going back and getting into politics.
hmm
But, that's, I don't know. I don't know. I think
Maybe.
maybe later, maybe another
Yeah.
day. But for now, I'm focusing on other things. Um, but yeah, Colombia, of course, plays a very important role in my life. At this point, I've lived half my life in Colombia and half my life overseas, so it's starting to feel more of a mix. And currently, I live in Mexico. We live in Mexico, and there's a lot I've learned from the local culture here, specifically, ancestral wisdom, indigenous information that has been shared with us, and so I'm also trying to connect with that, um, that information that was held from us both in Colombia and both in Europe, just because it wasn't available back then. So yeah, I don't know. I'm exploring. I'm a very complex human being. I have a Colombian passport. I have an Italian passport. I have a U.S. green card. Like it's great in terms of bureaucracy and
Yeah,
travel,
you're lucky. You're definitely lucky.
but in terms of my personal formation, it's just a good mix, a good cocktail.
Yeah. It's understandable because of your background. And I think it's fascinating also to consider how the relationship with the land, the original land, it's so in need of healing for so many of us. Like I feel the same with Italy, but it's been by coming back here, for example, that I had the chance. I did come back here because I had to. It was not a choice, but it's been an occasion, and I knew that life was kind of like pushing me on healing the relationship with my land, which I did for a big part, for that big part that was very traumatized. It was a big shadow for me being Italian, like big shadow. Now I feel more relaxed about it, but it's hard to belong. I think that belonging to something difficult for so many people, especially when we have backgrounds, parents that already they have their own identity, that it's multi-ethnical, or they have their own belonging issues that kind of go down on generation to generations, right? So I think this is something that I struggle with, like the belonging. And I hear a lot of people struggling, especially after COVID time, where the world got confused about the direction and where to go and what to do. And we had literally to stop and where to go, you know? But now where I'm going to go, where I'm going to stay, I don't know. I'm still processing those things. Anyway,
How do you define belonging?
I think that for me, belonging is a sense of peace and freedom of with internal peace and internal freedom, where I can feel safe to be. Where I can feel safe to be. I don't feel safe to be in Italy. It's not a place where I feel safe to be who I am and to express who I am, or simply to be in the silence of who I am. It's a place that pushes you constantly of you gotta prove the family, the backstory. There is a lot of heaviness on the shoulders that don't belong to me. And it's not that easy to, take down and say, I'm not gonna care about that, because maybe I do it, but I feel lonely and I feel not safe and I feel not seen and I feel not recognized. So yes, I can apparently do things to feel free or in peace, like slow living, healing, and all of this stuff. But when I'm here, physically here, I feel the energy of this place. Like I was in Germany yesterday. I've been in Germany in the last 5 days, and there was another energy, and my body was different. And I was feeling differently because of the land, because that was not Italy. And it was not America, it was Germany. It was a new experience. It was a new energy for me. And so I understand that confusion in terms of like, well, I don't really know yet. Maybe I will never know. Who knows? But definitely keep building a sense of safety inside. Yeah, that's definitely something that we can do no matter what. So the last question, which is my favorite one, because I love this word, the word becoming. And I ask everybody who comes here. And so, who is the person Santiago is becoming?
Who is the person Santiago is becoming? Wow, that's like 10 years of therapy in 1 minute. Who am I becoming? I don't know. I there's a lot of uncertainty in the process of becoming, which I fully embrace. I love that things sometimes go as unplanned, and hopefully it's for the better. You know, I like when life grants me surprises, when the unexpected happens. And I think that part of becoming someone is 50% that and 50% working on yourself. I'm becoming a more mature man. And I say man specifically because it also involves redefining a lot of aspects connected to masculinity. I'm becoming somebody who is very different from the masculine standards that are expected of someone like me. I'm becoming a more compassionate person with people. I'm very compassionate with animals, but people give me a little work. And I'm becoming more compassionate, not just with other people, but with myself, which is also very important. Applying that compassion with yourself. I'm becoming, I don't know.
You're becoming a businessman too. Let's remind that too. You know,
There's that aspect, but like I don't really want to become an entrepreneur. I just want to be able to create spaces and platforms where people feel safe and vulnerable and trustworthy and inspired and confident to share their story and present themselves as who they are. Like, yeah, hopefully that makes me millions of dollars and I can create this at a larger scale and help more people get in touch with their true essence, with compassion, with empathy, with all these standards that are helping me become who I want to be, which ultimately is a better version of myself, you know? And that is according to following a path of virtue where love is really the fuel through this all. You know, trying to become a more loving person, I think, is who I want to become.
and I think you are a lovely person. Let me remind that you and your wife, Valeria, are going to host a new retreat in August 2024. And everybody who is interested to know about the work of Santiago and Valeria, they can go and visit the link of Casa-earth that I'm going to upload in the commentary of the podcast. Go and check the work they do. I'm following an amazing course on herbalism. Hopefully I will join Bali too in August, which is the next retreat, and many more things that I think you can find in their social media and websites. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks to you for holding this space and for allowing me to express myself.
Welcome, Santiago. For everybody, please, if you liked this episode of podcast, follow the Holistic Actress show, like it, rate it, give me a star, share it, let my this space, not really my voice, but this space to be known for everybody that doesn't know it. And I'll see you to the next episode of the Holistic Actress show. Thank you for listening.